So I'm.
We have until 12 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm Ashish Goel. I'm a professor here in Stanford, and I'm in the School of Engineering. So both management science and computer science. And so I do research in algorithms. Until around like 10 years ago, I used to think of algorithms as something you do to make computers work faster. But around 8 years ago, I did a sabbatical at Twitter. At Twitter, I designed all their social algorithms. So I designed their recommendation system, their ad system. And so I realized that a lot of algorithms are now used to add value to socioeconomic systems, not just to make computers work better.
Sure.
And so once I came from Twitter, it was a nice experience. It was financially nice. It was good for my career. But then I realized that there are other areas where you can use algorithms. And the one where I think there's the most need is public decision making. And decision making not in the sense of necessarily informing politicians, because they already have a lot of resources. As a councilman, you can call upon experts and sort of ask them what they think. Right? But to more sort of help the public be an informed participant. And so we developed a bunch of algorithms in terms of how should people interact with each other, how should they make complex decisions. So on simple votes, it's okay. They can vote between Clinton or Trump and yes, no. But can you actually have the public vote on complex issues like what should the budget look like?
Yeah.
And so that's been our focus. We've been developing a lot of the theory behind it, but we've also been developing systems and deploying them. So the system that we have, which is very widely deployed, is called participatory budgeting. It's used by around, I think, 20 cities. And the goal there is that the city takes a small amount of the public's money and it puts it to direct vote by the public. And so it might be like a small amount, like $1 million, $2 million. A bunch of people do it. Like Vallejo, for example, uses that system.
Who does?
Vallejo.
Vallejo, okay.
And that's a big deal because Vallejo went through bankruptcy.
Yeah, I heard
So
about that.
for them, it's a big deal. This is a big effort by them to recover the public's trust.
Sure.
That's a big city, right, Vallejo?
It's a big city, and it's a city which is in very bad shape.
Yeah.
I mean, by a combination of circumstances.
Yeah.
There used to be a big Navy base, and the Navy base left, and the city started to recover. It would have recovered, but then the 2008 crisis hit, and it just went under.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful city, but under sort of difficult situations. Then we work with Chicago, for example. We work with around 10 wards in Chicago, which use our system to do participatory budgeting. Many wards in Greensboro. We have worked with Long Beach.
We ever approached Palo Alto?
Just to be upfront, Palo Alto is a little bit conservative. I don't mean conservative politically. It's a little bit conservative in terms of trying new things.
Oh yeah, I noticed that.
That's a true statement.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So, and partially it's because like everybody here is very educated, which is terrific. But that sort of means that there are a lot of things that Palo Alto does come under a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah.
It's just we just had a harder time approaching Palo Alto. But now that we've had so much success, I felt like I should reach out to Palo Alto.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have like these 15 or 20 cities which have already used the system. We've accumulated a big track record. Things have always worked fine. And the nice thing about this participatory budgeting is that it's a way for the public to get involved in some decision-making process. But the politicians are not on the ballot. So it's becomes a non-partisan issue. You're not deciding between Republicans and Democrats. You're not deciding between this mayor or that mayor, or this alderman or that alderman. You're just deciding on how the public should act on a certain issue. So that's a narrow thing. I'm going to give you a demo of a platform as it exists and the kind of things that we're building now. More broadly, we are trying to understand how you can help people deliberate on deep issues. So right now what happens is, if you go to any online web forum and you ask people to talk, what they'll end up doing is just shouting at each other. So we're trying to devise ways by which people can actually come to some kind of not consensus, because that's not the goal, right? Consensus is not the goal, because you'll never get 100% of the people to agree on something, and you shouldn't. It's to make informed decisions. It's sort of broadly consensus oriented.
Sure.
And so, for example, we helped Finland crowdsource their suggestions for the off-road traffic law.
What did you do?
So Finland is a big part of Finland is under snow for a big part of the year. The country of Finland.
Oh, Finland, okay. Yeah.
And so a big problem with Finland is where can you drive in the winter? So it's just like Yellowstone, because in the winter you can use snowmobiles. And so a big chunk of the country is under ice for a big chunk of the year.
Sure.
And all the forests are privately owned. but they were public rite of passage. So people with snowmobiles say, well, it's public rite of passage, so I should be able to go where I want. People who own those forests and environmentalists say, no, you shouldn't go where you want because you're damaging the forest. So we helped Finland sort of crowdsource ideas for how to fix this. It's a pretty complex and sort of heated issue in Finland. And generally, we understand how to get people to deliberate in small groups so that they can come to some kind of consensus in larger groups. So what we are looking for is just like a conversation, just like trying to understand from you what some of the issues in Palo Alto are that you think it'd be good to get community input on. Right? And then maybe if a CIM will help run it. It's not a funding issue in the sense that there might be like a small amount of money that we need just for like paying for advertising or server time or hardware. But that also often we can just get from our partners.
Sure.
So for example, we got some money from Google to advertise projects of this type. So for advertising, we don't need money from cities because we can advertise it ourselves.
Sure.
We also have a grant from the National Science Foundation, so we can do some development. So we don't. It's not a funding issue; it's more a partnership issue. And so the reason I think is you can't just ask people what they think directly.
Yeah.
It's because people don't resolve their internal inconsistency. If, for example, Palo Alto may be a very liberal city, right?
Sure.
But people don't want planes flying over Palo Alto. They want planes to divert over the bay.
There's a good op-ed piece in the New York Times yesterday. Did you read it?
No. Just
It was talking about like it was talking about the housing crisis and kind of like the even though this is probably one of the most liberal areas in the world.
And they want to be good to people in the middle class. They don't want to be. And the planes diverting over the bay, right? So there's a huge support, for example, for divesting from oil and gas companies. But diverting over the bay costs a lot of gas. So no one worries about planes diverting over the bay. And so there's the internal inconsistencies in people's opinion. Which is fine. I mean, people have their preferences, and it's up to people like you to resolve them. But it's also, if you're running a process of a deliberative process or a participatory process, you have to have people resolve their own inconsistencies.
Because we did the budget, and what happened in the budget is like everything's a yes, right? Like you have to say yes to everything, right? And so the problem is that you run out of money, right?
You don't have money.
And then like because no one you can't say no to anything, right?
So then maybe I'll give you a quick demo of a platform, and then I'll wind it up in 5 minutes. So we have the Stanford Participatory Budgeting platform. I'll directly take you to two different things that we do. So by the way, we have language support. We have worked with many cities.
Sure.
But let me show you a very simple example, and then show you a more complex example, and then even more complex example. In the simplest, and so we take care of authentication, we take care of language support, we take care of analytics, we do everything in the platform. The platform is only for voting. It's not for things which happen before the voting, like for steering committee meetings, public, all of that also takes effort. So we have some expertise there, but that's not part of the platform. So this is an example of what you were saying. So a lot of cities like to run participatory budgeting where they say, okay, choose 4 things that you like. And so when you're choosing these 4 things, you're not paying attention to how much they cost. And so you might choose something which costs too much. You might end up overspending the money. You might even end up underspending.
Sure.
And so what you're trying to convince cities to do, and we're succeeding in some cases. In some cases, we are having difficulty. Is this process, for example, something where you can do something like knapsack. So this is an experiment that we ran in New York City. What I showed you before was an actual vote. This is an experiment. We ran an actual vote also in New York City. So in New York City, there was, in I think 2015, 5 districts in New York City used a platform to vote on the budget. But the voting interface was a little bit different. What I'm showing you now is an experiment that we ran. So here what happens is, as you're selecting projects, you're seeing how much money you have consumed. And you can select as many projects as you want, but you can't exceed the total amount. And that forces you to say, oh, well, this is taking a lot of money. Do I really want to spend $475,000 on this thing, which is a security upgrade, which I don't really care about? So you can remove this. And then perhaps you can say, well, maybe this other project, which is a little bit cheaper, technology upgrades. This sounds more interesting. It's going to benefit more people. And it's cheaper. So by giving people a fixed budget, you force them to reconcile their own difference. right now, for example, at the federal level, what happens is everyone wants Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and defense, but they don't want to pay
and lower
for it.
taxes too.
And lower taxes too, right?
Yeah.
So platforms like of this type sort of help people resolve their own internal inconsistencies. So I think that's our main goal.
Okay.
And so this is a great process. We have theoretically proved that this gives optimum results.
Yeah.
We've also done lots of experiments. Just being academics because we write papers.
Sure.
Also deployed them in real settings. So Boston actually used this kind of a voting interface a couple of years ago, where they ask people to vote under a budget constraint.
We are just, I think tomorrow night or next week, I forgot what week, but we are looking at our Human Resource Commission.
Yeah.
Evaluated, I think, like community grants.
Yeah.
I forgot how much the budget's for, but there's all of these, like I think 30, 40 organization apply, and we're trying to figure out how do we, allocate these grants, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this might be a really interesting way.
So
of doing
I even have the commission can use it internally.
Yeah.
So these kinds of things start to make sense even with 5-10 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you want broader input.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing we already have the platform ready. So for us, it's not that hard. If you send us a list of email addresses of people to invite, we can make a platform, show it to you very quickly, see this is what the platform will look like, and then people can decide how to allocate. You also don't have to allocate fixed amounts of money. So you can also do things like
So what's the output though? So everyone kind of does their vote, right? Then what happens? What's the output of all that?
So let me show you one which we did, which was. So this is one which you did in Boston, but this is not the actual vote in Boston. This is an internal vote that a foundation in Boston did for a scenario which is very much like what you're describing. That foundation wanted to decide how to do its own internal allocation. So they just took $10,000. But the idea here is that you don't have to have a fixed budget. You can have if you're going to do it, you have to spend at least $400 and you can go up to $850. And so, so once again, so this is a bit more. This is more aligned with what you're saying, because you might take a grant and you might decide to allocate someone the full amount or a little bit less. You can have a minimum and a maximum. So what you asked was a good question. You said what does it look like all said and done?
Yeah.
And so then we have rich analytics. So the output of this, the outputs in many ways, right? The output just tells you what the solution ought to be. So it says, okay, this is how much money we are allocating to each project, to each thing. Right? So we are allocating $400 to printing for MTB and advertising. Okay, but you also get to see how many votes came in at every level.
Okay.
Again, this analytics could be public or private, depending on how you want to run it. But you also get far more visualizing. You get to see how many people voted at every level, how you decide to cut off. You get visual explanation of why you decide to cut off money at certain points. You get a bunch of vote counts, and then depending on the voting method, you get to see how many votes came in, on every day. Then depending on the permissions you have, you can see who voted. Again, I mean their privacy safeguards. So you won't be able to see for example, you're seeing opaque and you're seeing some kind of authentication ID. You're not seeing real results. Then sometimes, depending on the kind of interface you have, you can see more data. So for example, we did this in DF, where instead of asking people to allocate money from a fixed spot, they wanted to ask people to rank these projects. And so that's also equivalent, because that also forces you to do a trade-off. You can't say I want everything, you say I want this more than that. And then you can see how many times on the rank 1, 2, 3, 4, what is total score was. And so this has already been used by many cities. So there's no
Have you approached anyone on Palo Alto before or no?
No, it's my first time.
Okay.
I wasn't actually, honestly, I was going to sort of prioritize Stanford. So right now we're trying to do some visualizations with Stanford. So I want to say now that we're coming home, having been to Chicago, New York City, Boston, Cambridge, Seattle also is using it. I said let's come home and do it closer to Stanford. I mean, a little bit hesitant approaching Palo Alto and San Francisco because they're a little bit conservative. So I feel before I approach Palo Alto and San Francisco, I need to have a lot of evidence showing that this has worked in many, many, many other places.
But I mean, I'm on the finance committee, right? I can definitely see a tool like this being useful. So what does it take to get rolling on this?
So it depends on what you want to do. The thing that you are describing now, for that, it's just all we need is something which says, okay, can you put together something for us to see and send us the projects, and we put together a page for you to look. And then if you like the page, then you will tell us how you want to authenticate people, and that's it. It's live.
Okay.
So there's nothing. So this is something that we already built and deployed in many places. Now, if you want to do something bigger and broader, so the thing that we would love to do, for example, with Palo Alto, San Francisco, just because we also understand this area much better.
Sure.
It's something like where, for example, the mayor publishes a budget and then opens it up to public comments. Like San Francisco, that's what they do. And I'm not sure if Palo Alto operates the same way. Whether
Well, we publish what the budget is, but we don't. I mean, to be honest, like on the financial side, just extremely low participation from the residents.
Yeah.
I mean, it's although it's critically important.
Yeah.
Most people, it's like too detailed, right?
Yeah.
People can't understand it, right?
Yeah. So I think that would be, for us, that's the kind of thing that requires a longer engagement. So what we love to do is to take the budget in 1 year. We have money for advertising on Facebook, so we just blanket Facebook with ads saying, if you live in Palo Alto, then go and give your input on the budget. The click-through rates on those ads tend to be high. So if you're advertising shoes, the click-through people, like 0.1% of the people might click. If you're advertising a local political process, people feel like it's not just someone trying to sell me something. And around 1 to 2% of the people click on those ads.
Sure.
So I think the realistic participation rate is like 2 to 5%,
Sure.
which is actually a lot. So that would, like in a city of the size of Palo Alto, that would give you something like 2,000 people weighing in on the budget, which is better than zero. And so there sort of we would make, that's a deeper engagement because we'll make deep visualizations. We say these are the areas in which the city spends money, this is how it spends it. It won't be just like something like allocate money. There'll be a lot of ways of explaining, maybe some expert opinions.
So how much does this cost to do though?
This is free.
Oh, okay. Well, even better. Okay.
It's free, and we also give you services. So it's not only is it free, we also do Facebook advertising.
That's even better, right?
The other one.
So I think this would be awesome. We have a finance committee meeting on, I think, the 8th.
So just to show you very quickly. So this is the kind of thing that we would. This is the kind of deeper thing that we would build.
Okay.
So this is the kind of thing that would need some building.
Okay.
Because this is, for example, Stanford's budget.
Yeah.
But then we have trends.
Yeah.
Like how the money has been changing between different items. We have proportions. Yeah?
Sure.
But we also have explanations. So if you click on this, you see this is what this budget item does. This is why it's important.
Sure.
So like if you're just trying to decide whether to fill this pothole or not, you don't need to give people a ton of context.
Yeah.
But these city budgets, university budgets, they get complex. You need to explain to people what these things are.
Yeah.
So raw data, news, right?
Yeah.
Expert opinions.
Yeah.
So I think for us.
But so just out of curiosity, for Stanford, who weighs in on the budget?
No, this is just a demo.
Oh, okay. But who would weigh in? Because university is different, right? Because
so the university is very reluctant to let us do it for the whole university budget.
Yeah.
So I think the plan right now is there's a student senate, which has its own money.
Wait.
Oh, generally nobody.
No. I'm just thinking like, okay, for the city, right?
Yeah.
The city's budget is the taxpayer, right? I mean, it's so theoretically the taxpayer should have some sort of say, right?
Yeah.
But in the university, it's, I guess, the donors. Is it the donors?
No. The plan was that the students and faculty would pay.
Okay.
But the university has nothing to do it for the whole budget.
Okay. Yeah, because the students aren't. Well, I guess students do give some money. They have tuition.
But the problem with the students is that they might all vote for diversification.
Yeah. No, but the students, I guess, the students do pay money in, right?
The students do pay money.
Yeah. The faculty gets the money, so that. Yeah,
but the faculty paying a lot of research grants.
Oh, that's true.
So the faculty are also a profit center for the university.
Yeah.
Everything is a profit center for the university.
Yeah. Okay.
So for example, the biggest source of money, if you look at where the money comes from, the biggest is somewhere buried here. The biggest source of money for the university is not tuition, is the medical school.
Hey, I would love to bring this to the finance committee.
Yeah.
So we have a finance committee meeting on the 8th.
Yeah.
It's a bit too soon for you, but
I mean we are ready for everything. So I think we are not in this situation.
Do you want to come and it's on the 8th at, I think it's do you know what time it is?
Yeah, I'm looking. It's finance.
Finance. It's at the 8th Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday.
I don't see it on the 8th.
Look at the calendar. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's on Tuesday the 7th at 7 p.m.
No, I think they moved it to the 8th. Can you look at the sheet? Yeah. But anyways, if you have time, I think it's great because.
But I think what I would need from you for a meeting like this, sorry to interrupt, is some indication of what I should describe. So like, for example, for us, this is a big research. It's like what something that 3 or 4 students are doing. Something.
Yeah, it's on the 8th though, right?
Yes.
Should we focus on the Human Resource Commission use case? In which case, I won't even bring this up.
Yeah.
The problem is like in a meeting like that, if I pitch too much, then it sounds like we are selling everything, and it's not clear what we are doing.
Yeah.
Should I pitch the budget feedback? Should I pitch the Human Resource Commission issue? Should I pitch the overall project and ask people what they think?
You know what might be good is to have this. Okay, so Human Relations Commission is too late because we have to vote for Wednesday, so it's much too late for that.
Got it.
So it'd almost be good, although it would be, I think, a great application for this.
Yeah.
We should probably do it for the upcoming budgets, right? Like the comprehensive improvement plan, right?
Okay.
Or I think the CIP budget. Or we have all these different budgets, right?
Right.
And we should probably work on them. Now, what's interesting is your proposal is actually to have some real money behind it, not just a recommendation, but actually real money.
Yeah. Otherwise, we will behave very differently. There's no real money. Yeah.
Okay. So
Sorry. It could be a recommendation. It has to be a recommendation for real money.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be binding.
Okay.
So the process that I showed you before, these are binding processes. The city they might not be legally binding, they're politically binding.
Okay.
The alderman has said we're going to do this.
Okay.
But you can do it in an advisory setting.
Yeah.
People vote less. People tend to participate less for advisory.
I think that like picking one of the budgets and proposing for that in advance, so we can actually use it. So like the Human Relations Commission thing would have been really nice to have. Yeah. But we're too late, right?
Of course.
But there's also upcoming stuff, right? So let's think. Like the CIP budget is coming up. So the CIP budget is capital improvement projects. And so what it is we're trying to allocate all this money across the infrastructure of the city, right? All these different buildings and all this kind of stuff, right? That one tends to get like it's like crickets. Nobody even. But
so I think
so that would be good because that goes to the planning commission too. Okay. And then it goes to finance and city council.
And we can advertise on behalf of the city, and if not that many people participate, so you should keep it advisory.
Yeah, I mean,
because my worry is that if
I think they would have to be advisory because I don't think that because this is a bit of a test. I think people would. It's too much money. The CIP budget is big.
It's big.
It's a big budget. So it's something which is probably too much risk. Right, but I mean, if it was a community block grants type thing, it's different because it's like not much money.
So then I think I'll think about it. I look at the so I'm
look
happy
at the CIP budget.
I reach out to Raj and Max to figure out whether this is happening or not. I look at the CIP budget.
Well,
I'll come prepared to talk about the CIP budget if I'm coming.
Yeah, I think the CIP budget is coming. Let me think. I'm trying to make sure I don't have you do something that's already
too late.
Already too late. The planning commission because it's already October. Yeah, I think we just have to check to make sure that we're early enough for that. Yeah. I mean,
I think it might be too late because I think I have a postdoc who works with me, and so postdoc is someone who's finished their PhD, but I'm not yet ready for an academic. She mentioned that she was consulting with the city on their comprehensive plan upgrade.
Oh, that's different. That's a different thing.
I see, that's a different thing.
Yeah. So the CIP is.
Oh, it's a comprehensive improvement plan, not a comprehensive.
Capital improvement project.
Oh, this is perfect. This is perfect for capital improvement project. Because they tend to be values oriented.
Yeah, so it's just like should we allocate the money to repair this roof?
Yeah.
Or AC for this, or a bathroom in this park, or
what becomes harder are things like should we do abortion or not abortion? I mean, those things become like very values oriented.
Can we wrap this up in a few minutes?
We are done.
Okay. So I think that one's probably a good one to target, or we can also target the regular city budget as well. And that one we have a lot of time on because that one we just approved in May.
And so that one would be sort of to have a public. And so we can advertise. B, we can also partner with local newspaper.
Yeah.
So if we do it, we'll partner with the Palo Alto Daily, so they put it on their website.
I actually think that just a whole city budget would be really interesting, but it may be too hard because it's such a big budget.
It requires a lot of visualization and presentation. So I think it's.
But the CIP is a smaller budget. It's more. It's all about infrastructure.
Yeah.
So it may be an easy one to start with. Yeah. And just I'm trying to make sure we have to check to see if we're if it's not too late.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I live here, right? And you're here for the long haul.
Sure.
So we should make sure we do something that makes sense and which is going to be successful,
Sure.
as opposed to like rush into something which doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Should I reach out Raj and Max?
Yeah,
to
of
figure
course.
out? I'll reach out to them to figure out when this is happening.
Okay.
Thank you very much for making
Thank
time.
you. Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course.
See you, Raj.
Thank you. Oh, looks like this is. Oh, well, you can work with him actually fix that.
Raj, can you set up Facebook Live on your laptop?
Yeah, hold on. This is,
Yeah, can you do that, please? You just you need it. Okay. Raj, yeah, can you do that?
yeah, I'm doing that right now. Max?
Yep.
This is like, it's still running. It's still running. I can see on my computer it's still running, but it's not closing.
Guys, we should probably close the store once we can because people are getting confused.